What's up YouTube? Capital G here. What can I say, guys? Another day, another BAE, because Konami is back at it again with the waifu cards, and clearly at this point, I think we can all just see that the artists for Rush Duels are just having a lot of fun, and I can't blame them because I am enjoying this too. What you guys are looking at is a new Rush Duel card called Bubbly Elf, and obviously, if you're a Yu-Gi-Oh boomer like myself, you know exactly what this card is referencing, or an older version of this card, and that would be obviously Mystical Elf, and that's a super old school card. I don't want to say it's obscure because if you type in Yu-Gi-Oh and you start typing in Mystical, after Mystic Mine and Mystic Fighters, Mystical Elf is still like one of the first cards that pops up, and it's because, you know, it was a card used in the original DM anime. Off the top of my head, I would probably guess that it's from LOB or Metal Raiders. I mean, it's super old. It was used in like Duelist Kingdom. It was in Starter Deck Yugi, and it's a really old school card. But yeah, Konami has remade the card, and with a really funny design. I absolutely love Bubbly Elf's design. Not only did they clearly make her much more waifu material, but they also gave her this really awesome Japanese 80s vibe, which is super interesting. In fact, it's not just her design, but they wrote it into her lore as well, and it's really kind of ironic because Rush Duels, in my opinion, is more marketed and more catered to a younger audience. I mean, we kind of see that from the design of Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s as a whole, and the fact that the mechanics are a lot simpler, and I don't think that they're going to have so many of, you know, the complications that modern IRL Yu-Gi-Oh! Has with the physical card game. So it's kind of interesting that, you know, they're going for all of these redesigns on Dan Kato and Mystical Elf, and these are like damn near 20-year-old cards that, if you're a Rush Duel player, someone new to the game, there's a good chance you weren't even alive when those cards came out. But anyways, I'm going to read the flavor text of Bubbly Elf, and I'll actually explain to you guys what they're referencing. So her flavor text says, her soft and smooth appearance from the good old days. She loves the party deep down, but she's a bit too bookish to really boogie. She's besties with her pal, One Length Lamoon, constantly paging each other. And honestly, if you're like a Zoomer and you're young enough, you might not even know what paging means, because that's something that died out in the 90s. Believe you me, I had a couple of uncles who had like pagers back in the day. And just, I guess, to quickly explain what a pager is, a pager is like the grandfather of the cell phone. Before we had like cell phones and stuff like that, we had pagers, which they're like super scuff version of cell phones. You would actually call your friend or your family member's pager, and it would beep, and it would kind of let you know, or let them know, that you were trying to call them. You couldn't call anyone from the pager because technology just hadn't gotten to that point. I mean, you could call them from like a landline or from a payphone or something like that, but obviously this is super ancient technology that we're talking about, and it's really interesting because what they're referencing is something that if you're Japanese you might understand, and that's what's called the bubble era of Japan, which back in like the late 80s to the early 90s, Japan had like one of the best economies in the entire world. In fact, it might have been the best economy. Toyota was like starting to pop off, and they were moving into North America. They were starting to become a very big brand. Also, Nintendo, you know, the NES came out in '85, so the Nintendo NES was starting to kill it in Japan and also in North America, and their economy was just booming and booming, and they were making it rain, and all the assets, aka real estate and like stonks, they were just exploding. The problem is they didn't realize that they were actually creating a bubble, because they just kept buying every single thing that wasn't nailed down essentially, and when the bubble burst, as all asset bubbles do, including the stock market, which, I mean, I don't want to go too deep into this, but when the bubble burst, basically their economy imploded. And I know for a fact that the Japanese stock market has essentially never recovered. I want to say that happened in like 1991, and the Japanese stock market has been trading 30 years flat or 30 years sideways, so they've never really recovered. But I kind of love what Konami's doing here. Not just redesigning old cards, which, by the way, I loved when Konami did that with the old Magic Ruler cards during the Vrains era. You guys know cards like Hashinigan, and then also Witch's Apprentice. They made all of those cards into Link monsters during this era, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. But But I like the fact that they make the, they're making the new cards, they're kind of giving them their own identity. And I kind of feel like Konami should do way more of this. The only downside, as I did say in the, my last video talking about Deanne Kato, is the fact that these cards are probably going to be exclusive to Rush Duels. And that's like the one buzzkill, man, especially considering that can Rush Duel players can they even appreciate this? Again, there's a good chance that a Rush Duel player, if you're young enough, you weren't even alive when Mystical Elf was released, so like you don't know anything about that. But I'm a fan of what Konami's doing here, and I like the fact that the artists are clearly having a lot of fun with this, so hopefully there'll be more of them in the future. Anyways, whatever you guys think, a bubbly elf, you guys leave that in the comment section below. Do you want to see more of this in the future? If so, you leave that in the comment section below as well. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on that notification bell for daily videos.